And welcome to the Oddity Archive, the show that, is gonna blow your doors in, good buddy. Well, once again, our ratings are sagging worse than a cheap antenna, so you know what that means, right? It's Warm Fuzzy Nostalgia Day, again. And it's nostalgia for something that about half our audience is too young to remember, myself included. And so, yeah, in case you didn't get the hint, it's our older viewers that we seem to be losing. So, anyway, this one's for you. Today, we got us a great big old convoy. Ain't she a beautiful sight?
Mr. Suntek O will now show you the powerful Cobra Punch.
Yeah! Punch through with a Cobra CB and be heard loud and clear. Handsome exterior belies powerful interior that consistently covers much distance.
I pretty well missed the CB craze of the mid and late 70s. I did not miss, however, the 70s nostalgia revival of the mid and late 90s. I mean, I couldn't turn on my TV without running headfirst into shows like That 70s Show and 8-Track Flashback. I couldn't go to the movies without titles like Boogie Nights on the marquee, and I couldn't turn on my radio on a Saturday night without getting an earful of Saturday Night Fever era Bee Gees. Anyway, in this sudden, forced rush of, to me, non-nostalgia, I found myself unintentionally face-to-face with stuff like bell-bottoms, pet rocks, 8-tracks, mood rings, streakers, and CB radio. History lesson time! In 1944, Navy Rear Admiral Stanford C. Hooper proposed to the FCC the allowance of some of the broadcast airwaves to be reserved for public use, largely for returning World War II vets, and particularly those with technical experience gained in the service. The idea was to allow and encourage experiments that would hopefully lead to some innovations in the communications industry. The following year, the FCC announced the intent to allow this idea to come to fruition, and the phrase citizens band was coined. In the late 40s, the 465 MHz area of the airwaves was allocated for licensed public use, and the first CB radios hit the market. Problem was, the frequencies allocated weren't that great, the early CB radios were prohibitively expensive, and, as such, few were ever sold. Unsurprisingly, the so-called citizens band went largely unused. Fast forward to September of 1958, and the Citizens Band was relocated to a shared portion of the 11-meter area of one of the ham radio bands, specifically 23 channels, spanning from 26.965 to 27.255 MHz, mostly spaced 10 kHz apart. This time around, CBs were largely sold as kits as opposed to ready-made units, and this proved to be the kick needed to help bring CB radio into regular use.
Ministers began what was to be an 8-hour meeting, resulting in their decision to reduce the flow of oil to America and other nations supporting Israel.
The OPEC oil embargo of 1973 and 74 led to a nationwide, flat, 55-mile-an-hour interstate speed limit, as well as gas rationing, which had already been going on. In response, truck drivers, many of which had already been using CB in their rigs, began using the band to alert other truckers of stocked gas stations, warn each other of speed traps, and, most notably, organize impromptu protests regarding the new speed limit law, aka the convoy.
Name was Mavis. I gave her the money. Says, how's about an old home burger and an ice cream cone? Cool myself off with. Put a patty on the grill and back she came. Says, tell me, truck man, what's your name? I said, C.W. McCall, and I haul for old home. You call me C.W.
In the fall of 1975, commercial jingle writer and voiceover artist Bill Fries released a song under his longtime bread commercial/country recording artist pseudonym C.W. McCall. Of course, this song was that eternal archive/record ripoff standby, Convoy.
I says, Pigpen, this here's a rubber duck, and I'm about to put the hammer down. We got a little convoy rocking through the night. Yeah, we got a little convoy. Ain't she a beautiful sight?
Anyway, by mid-December, this romanticized tale of a fictitious convoy protesting various forms of highway bureaucracy topped the country charts. And come January 10th, it topped the pop charts as well. Unsurprisingly, CB sales skyrocketed.
Smokey Bar. Now that's them old boys what work for the state and drive them old high-powered machines. And if the machine's got the state's name on the side, it's a Tijuana taxi. Or then again, it may not have the state's name on the side, in which case it's a plain white wrapper, plain gray wrapper, plain green wrapper, or plain blue wrapper.
At the height of the CB radio fad, you had movies like Smokey and the Bandit and Convoy, based on the song, as well as the likes of First Lady Betty Ford, under the handle First Mama, cartoon voiceover artist Mel Blanc, usually in the guise of Bugs Bunny or Daffy Duck, and actor James Earl Jones, in the guise of Darth Vader, all partaking in the CB trend. Things got so active on CB that the FCC expanded it from 23 to 40 channels in July of 1976, though the first 40-channel radios didn't hit the market until the beginning of 1977. Also, the license fee for CB use, aka Class D, which had been $20 at the start of the decade, was dropped to $4. As a side note, the FCC dropped the need for a paid physical license entirely in 1981.
Why don't you stick it in your dang ear? Why don't you? It might fit better. Why don't you come and try to make me and I'll shove it up your... Why don't you both get up?
Perhaps the great unintentional consequence of the expansion to 40 channels in 1977 was the sudden glut of the old 23-channel radios that manufacturers were now trying to clear out. These, now fairly cheap radios, were bought up by folks that otherwise likely never would have purchased one otherwise. This, coupled with the sheer ubiquity of CBs in movies, TV, and merchandising, as well as tinkerers who were, illegally, maxing out their power output, the Citizens Band quickly devolved into a hangout for abusive, in more than one way, users. By the end of the decade, CB radio's popularity tanked. These days, CB radios are still used to some degree by truckers and outdoorsmen, and few others. Having said that, radios are surprisingly still quite easy to find. Now, around these parts, the Citizens Band is borderline dead. But having said that, up until about 2013, the Denver area CB scene, when there still was such a thing, had become almost entirely the domain of a few special people. So much so that a website was created for them, complete with borderline fanfic. Thankfully, some users of the website recorded some of these witty conversations for posterity.
Because I have a radio.
He is superior because he has a radio. Now, you remember that, Gator.
What? Now, what does that have to do with me?
Well, that guy said he had a radio, so that means he's superior.
Hey, I've been out here long enough. Hey, it doesn't matter what you got. Your ain't superior. There's always somebody out there that's got something better.
Talk to me.
Problem, Ken. Go buy a gun, load it, point it at your head, and pull the trigger. My problem will be solved.
I rest my case.
I'm so psycho. A psycho person would come kill you. A sane person would tell you do us all a favor. And that's exactly what
Shut the f*** up!
Getting back to the 70s here, the CB craze didn't just launch a couple of movies and novelty songs, it launched entire lines of toys and t-shirts and all sorts of other merch. Well, of course, some of this merch was actually halfway useful, like there were books on the subject. And so I guess the concept of an audiobook on CB really isn't too far-fetched, 8-track decks were becoming the norm in people's cars. Actually, they kind of had been for a while. And standard cassette decks were starting to become the norm both at home and in the car. And, well, I'm sure there's something like that out there, but, of course, this being the archive, we couldn't have anything too useful now, could we? So, what we've got is a cheap, hokey how-to album, fresh from the thrift store bin, and this is from 1976, and it's called Everything You Need to Know to Operate a CB Radio. And this is home to some rather dirty-sounding titles. Stuff like, Where Are the Smokies and Beavers? Having an Eyeball, and my personal favorite, How About an Eastbounder? Also available on 8-track.
You may want to choose a handle referring to the color and shape of your car, such as Little Red Wagon or Blue Blazer. Or you may want your handle to reflect your occupation, such as Music Maker for a musician, or Grass Grower for a farmer, or Metal Man for a sheet metal or iron worker. Or choose a handle that reflects your personality or hobby. A beaver might choose Snowbird. A man could choose Casanova, Fox Hunter, or Flashbulb. Only a Brooklyn CBer would know that tree is supposed to mean 3. And a Southern beaver should practice saying 4 instead of FOA if she cruises past the Mason-Dixon line.
That Morristown is my home 20, and I have a base station on James Street.
Well, I'm going to make some adjustment on this SWR. Hey, when you get home this evening, why don't you give me a shout on Channel 18 around 9 p.m.?
Hey, Snowbird, I'll be looking forward to giving you a shout. We can do some modulating and then maybe eyeball for a cup of Java.
Well, Witch Doctor, I will be looking forward to hearing from you this evening on 18. Witch Doctor, let me send you some 8s and other good numbers. This is KPT 07981 on the side.
Well, you have a good day today and a better day tomorrow. KRS 07933. We're down, we're gone. Bye-bye.
You just never know what may come as a result of a radio check.
You got that one, Snowbird?
Hi, Snowbird. You got the loose goose here. I've been trying to give you a shout for the last couple days.
Well, I've been at the seashore with my family and just got back last night.
Oh, well, I was wondering, Snowbird, if we could get together for an eyeball.
Gee, loose goose, I'd like to talk to you about that.
Snowbird, why don't you call me at 8:15 this evening at a payphone? The number's 444-3729, and I'll be waiting there to receive your call.
That's a Big 10-4, loose goose. Talk to you later. This is that one Snowbird, KDS 06101 on the side.
This is KGM 07933, signing off till tune-in time.
By providing the number of a payphone, Loose Goose can safely talk to Snowbird and make plans to meet in person without the rest of the CB world knowing their specific plans.
Is that one silver midget on the channel?
Yeah, you got that one silver midget.
This is Tennessee Jed. Did you hear about that coffee break?
That's a 10-4, Tennessee Jed. We'll be at that Union High for the coffee break.
The 10-4 silver midget. I'll be looking forward to meeting you. I've been hearing you're some foxy lady. Thanks again for that break, boys. This is KTJ 07040 on the side.
I'm as foxy as my silver bullet MGB. See you at the break, Tennessee Jed.
That conversation demonstrated the proper way to break in and ask for the use of the channel.
Well, with that bit of learning done, I guess I ought to fess up to owning a 40-channel base station CB radio myself from 1979 that I picked up on eBay, that I paid about 4 times as much for the shipping as I did the radio itself. I think it works. It's kind of hard to tell when you're apparently the only person left in CB land. Now, I had a great idea for a segment here that involved me just finding some random person, over the air, and making a total ass of myself, speaking nothing but 70s CB slang, but then I remembered that the airwaves around here are pretty dead. Now, having said that, I'm not even going to fully demo this unit, and this being for a few reasons. One, as I said, the CB around here is just deader than a doornail. Number two, I learned the hard way that if I hit the transmit button on here, the button on the microphone, and this is just the stock Sears mic, by the way, that it came with originally. If I hit that button, while my computer is on at least, it makes my speakers fart like there is no tomorrow, and amongst a couple other things. But I have a computer on, I have a microphone running, and of course the camcorder going all at once, and I'm already having a little bit of interference because of this thing with my mic, so I'm just not going there. And number three, my setup is not advanced. In fact, it's not particularly good, for that matter. So with that in mind, I might as well give the real amateur radio geeks out there a good laugh. So this is my old Sears Road Talker 40 with an add-on AC transformer that Sears sold separately back then. And it's just got an on and off switch, and it hooks to the radio, and of course I have an antenna and everything hooked up right now. But the big problem is that I don't have the manual for this, and I can't find one, and I can't find any pertinent demos of this radio online, so needless to say, I didn't know, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So anyway, I played around with the meter on this a good bit, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out if I was using it right, so as best as I can tell, according to this, I had a 4-to-1 standing wave ratio, SWR, going on every time. And I soon found out that this is apparently not a good thing. You want it to be as close to a 1-to-1 ratio as possible. So I tested this thing in every order I could think of, all 2 of them. I'd adjust the antenna and just no change at all. And speaking of antennas, the only practical antenna I've got right now is one of those magnetic deals that you plop onto the roof of a car and that takes your paint with it if you try and take it off. And what I've done, you're really going to hate me for this, but I have done the absolute most ghetto thing imaginable, and you'll just have to take my word for it because it's well out of the shot, but I plopped my antenna onto the bottom of a cookie sheet, since I obviously ain't going to fit no car in here, and it's living near the window right now. And anyway, after doing that, I checked the SWR meter again, and of course, no change. So I hopped down to the only truck stop in beautiful downtown Aurora, and believe it or not, these places do sell CB stuff, and I bought me a standalone SWR meter. And of course the damn thing cost more than I paid for the radio, but I got it, brought it home, and I read the manual, watched some how-to videos online, and just all around dinked around with this stuff for a while, and I've got it to a point where I can't get a particularly consistent reading on both ends of the CB, the Citizens Band, but I'm at about 1.7 to 1.9 to 1 on the lower and middle channels, and around a 2.1 to 2.3 to 1 ratio on the upper channels. And of course, all this was probably at least somewhat pointless because I don't have a reason or intention to transmit. I just like my things in good working order. I'm weird. So, having said all that, let's just take a quick look at the switches and knobs here. So this one is the if it's in the center mode, in the center switch, it is RF mode, which is just listening, CB, all that great stuff. And if it's switched up, SWR, and down, calibrate. And you use it in tandem with this outer knob. It's one of those 2-in-1 deals, but you try to calibrate the radio with it. I think there might be something wrong with that part of it, because I get the exact same reading every time. But, you've already heard me rant about that. But center switch here, off, and NB, which is noise blanker. And that cuts down on the noise a bit, so I leave that on. And then, like a lot of CBs, this can double as a PA, but, public address system. But I haven't had much luck with it. I tried to, hook up a speaker to it and didn't really have a whole lot of luck. So when it's up, it's in CB mode, and that's just where it lives. And the knobs. So on the left here, power/volume. So if you have it off, all the way to the left, it's off, and then it clicks on, and then you turn up the volume. And then the inner part of this knob here is the RF gain. And, of course, that gives you a little more power, I guess you could say. And then you've got the squelch knob, which, if you turn it up, it cuts the noise down. So it hasn't been very useful to me, to be honest. But, yeah. There you go. And then a fine-tuning knob for those ultra-rare occasions where I actually do pick something up. And, of course, here, this just changes the channel. So, 40 channel. And with all of this in mind, I'm going to come flat out and say, in case you didn't get the hint, I'm probably not a good source for advice on this stuff. So if for some freaky reason you want to play around with this stuff, go somewhere else. I mean, there are online tutorials and books and stuff, from actual experts out there. Well, that's it for today's archive. Join us next time when I throw this out the window, suffer some sort of breakdown and sulk a lot, and then try for and fail to achieve my amateur radio license. But till then, keep your dirty side up and your shiny side down. I think that's right.
Let them truckers roll 10-4.
What's your handle, good buddy?
Well, my handle'll be Sand Crab, and I'm pushing an 18-wheeler.
Sand Crab, there's no bears in on this interstate. Is there anyone hurt on that 1033?
What you have just heard is an actual CB conversation.